So here's what we're going to do. Our player is going to be outside the fence of a haunted house, and the main theme music is going to play immediately when they spawn into the game. The moment they walk inside of the fence, the music will transition into a spooky version of the theme. When they walk outside of the fence, the music will transition back to the original theme. Here's how we do that. I'm going to import two audio files into the default work unit of the interactive music hierarchy. Now notice that I'm very particular about how I name these tracks. Both of these track names state that they are both 140 beats per minute in a 4/4 time signature and are 16 bars long. The P0 simply means that there is no pre-entry, which will not be included in this episode. Go ahead and hit F10 in order to move to the interactive music layout. Go into each music segment and change the tempo to whatever tempo your tracks are. Mine is 140. Change the time signature as well if necessary. Then at the bottom, we'll see the wavelengths of our tracks. Currently, our track is set to start at our first bar, which is correct, but the end cue is way further than where our track ends. So we're going to take the red cue at the end of our track and drag it to the 16th bar since we know the track is 16 bars long. We're going to do the same thing with our other track. Now on their own, these tracks will only play once and stop. We want them to loop. To do this, we will make two music playlist containers, naming them Normal and Spooky. Then, we'll add each music segment into the respective playlist container. If you leave this as is, the playlist container will do nothing, so make sure to drag each music segment into this bottom area, the music playlist editor. Leave the group as sequence continuous and change the loop amount to infinite by hitting the down arrow once. Do the same thing with the other playlist container. We need to be able to switch between these playlist containers depending on which location we're in, either inside or outside of the fence. To do this, make a new music switch container and name it Theme. Place both music playlist containers into it. Before we move on, we'll need to make some states for our switch container to use. Go to the Game Settings tab, make a new state group, and call it Location. Add a main area and haunted house state into the location state group. Go back to the Audio tab and go into the Theme switch container. Change the tempo to 140 since the switch container overridden any of the tempo changes we made to the music segments. In the Music Switch Container Association Editor, press the double right arrow button on the top left and add the location state group. Select each of the states inside, including none, pressing Add Path for each of them. We should now have 3 paths. Drag the Spooky playlist container into the Haunted House object, and drag the Normal playlist container into the main area and None objects. This by itself doesn't cut it. We want these two to transition from one to the next almost immediately after crossing the fence. To do this, go to the Transitions tab and in the first transition that is provided for us by default, make the following alterations. Change Exit Source At to Next Beat. In this case, Immediate may work as well, but Next Beat is just a little bit cleaner. Uncheck the Play Post Exit, we won't need it. Check the Fade Out box. This will ensure that our transition is smooth and seamless. Hit Edit next to the Fade Out checkbox, change the time to 4 and the offset to 2. Then change the Jump to specific playlist item. Then change the Sync to same time as playing segment. This is the function that allows both tracks to start and end at the exact same time in each of their tracks. Now check the Fade In checkbox and do the same edit as the Fade Out, changing the time to 4, but this time changing the offset to -2. Let's test out what that sounds like, changing the state between main area and haunted house. Make a play music event to play the theme switch container. Then make a new sound bank, naming it main. Then hit F7 and add the play music event to the main sound bank. Generate the sound bank and head on over to Unity. Here's our Unity map. I used the Mega Fantasy Props pack for the house assets and the standard assets for Unity 2018.4 for the third-person controller. Now we'll implement our Wwise assets. First, we need to make sure our bank gets loaded onto the project. Go into the Wwise global object and add an AK bank. Change the load on to awake and have it start the main sound bank. Then, I'm going to head over to the camera inside of my third-person controller. Add the AK audio listener to it, then add an AK event. Have it trigger on awake and have it start the play music event. This will ensure that your music plays right at the beginning of the game. Now we need to be able to set the main area and haunted house states when we go inside and outside of the fence. Make a new cube object and have it cover the inside of the fence entrance. Then copy the cube object and move it directly adjacent to the other cube object, covering the outside of the fence entrance. Select both cube objects, remove the mesh renderer, and inside of the box collider, check the Is Trigger checkbox. Then add an AK state. Change the trigger on to AK Trigger Enter, and check the Use Other Object checkbox. Select the inside cube and change the state to Haunted House. Then select the outside cube and change the state to Main Area. And that's it. Let's test it out.